What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my builds guide and refined review for Echidna, Mareeta, Travant, and Ced. So Echidna got a really amazing weapon refine which I didn't really expect honestly, and she gets +8 to all of her stats with this weapon in the combat and also gets 30% damage reduction on foes' first attack, and then she can get true damage on her next attack depending on the total damage that she has reduced. So this is basically the damage reflection that we have seen on Hans before, and it's pretty much like the ice mirror effect, but the damage reduction is pierceable, and this is a very strong effect as you have seen on Hans because it allows you to just one-shot units quite easily, and it definitely helps with Echidna because she doesn't really have the highest attack stat, so having the true damage is really good. And then she can heal up 7 HP after the combat, and she has got Spectrum Unity effect built in, and that is obviously very strong in a metagame where Legendary Male Robin is one of the best support units out there. So you can stack up the Grand Strategy status with the Spectrum Unity effect and stack it up with attack speed unity in the slot A and basically have triple unity. So that can make her function as a pretty amazing God Axe unit with high speed. Even though she's not one of those units with like insanely high base speed, she can still function with that. And then finally she can get special cooldown charge +1 on per attack. So this allows her to retaliate back with 2 cooldown specials like Moonbow and Vital Astra, which is really good. And Echidna's weapon refine is quite reminiscent of mixing up Hans and female Ced. So we have got the damage reflection of Hans, and then we have got the special charges of female Ced. And Echidna basically combines those things and has the Spectrum Unity effect on top of it, and also has the healing, which is really good for the self-sustain. And she can function as a really good God Axe, and overall I do think that Echidna is the better unit out of these three, even though Hans and Ced are newer units and do take less Dragon Flowers. But obviously Hans and Ced are going to be having that edge as a scoring unit in Arena. I mean, that's pretty much why most people build up Hans as a scoring bot in Arena, and he can function pretty well there. So Echidna does not really have as much attack as Hans, so her one-shot potential is not as good as Hans, and obviously her speed is not as high as female Ced, but overall the other effects in her weapon kind of make up for that fact and makes her as a pretty good unit that he can build up in the 3-star 4-star pool. So if you're trying to build up a unit for the arena scoring, then Hans and female Ced are going to be the options. And honestly, you should probably wait a couple of months because we're going to be having the BST bump in Choose Your Legends just next week. So we should be having infantry units with higher BST. So for arena scoring, Hans and female Ced are going to be getting kind of outclassed in that particular thing, but they're still going to be scoring higher than Echidna. But overall, I do think that Echidna is going to be better as a combat unit because of the effects that she has got, and it's not that she just gets a lot of stats with the unity effect, it's also the fact that she has got the other effects like special charges and the healing, which is really good because Hans has to run Darting Breath Sacred Seal to get the special charges, whereas Echidna can just run some other Sacred Seal, and the healing is really helpful as a Omni tank basically. So I'm really happy with Echidna's weapon refine, and I think that this is pretty much, one of the best demote refines that we have got. And I do think that she has got the second best weapon refine in this August patch after Legendary Seliph, which is definitely tall praise because she's literally after a Legendary unit's refine and remix. So if you're going to be building up Echidna, then there are two ways of going about things. The first way is functioning as a God Axe. So she can function with Distant Dart, a tier 4 damage reduction skill, and Speed Smoke as her slot C skill. The idea is to stack up the damage reduction so that she can have better damage reflection, because keep in mind, she's going to be doing whatever damage back that she reduces. So that's why having more damage reduction is always good, and she does have the speed, and she can get even faster with the unity effect in her weapon. So that allows for higher speed ceilings, so she can definitely run a speedy build. And Close Call 4 or any kind of tier 4 damage reduction skill does have that phantom speed built in, which can definitely help her in other matchups against the other fast opponents. Unfortunately, she doesn't really have null follow-up in her weapon, so you can definitely run that as a secret seal if you cannot outsource it to some other ally with infantry speed tactic or infantry null follow-up. So that could be done, and she can run Vital Astra as her best 2 cooldown special because it is going to be doing the most amount of damage, and if it's pre-charged, then it can also act as another source of damage reduction. And because of the special charges that she can get, it is going to be giving her a very nice burst option for killing things with her damage reflection. That is pretty much what Hans does if you have seen my arena videos. So this is one way of going about things, and if you're on a budget, then you can certainly run Distant Counter and a tier 3 version of Close Call. Speed Smoke is available in the Divine Code, so you could get that, and some other special like Moonbow does work in her special, but overall having Vital Astra and these premium skills are gonna be paying off with a Weapon Refine as good as hers. The other way of using Echidna is definitely stacking attack speed unity with her weapon and also grand strategy of Legendary Male Robin. So he could be run and provide that grand strategy status and also provide her with the null follow-up by running infantry null follow-up from the divine codes. So he can function as a really good ally for Echidna. And if you're not going to be running distant dart or any kind of distant counter skill, then this is the way of doing things, because stacking unity skills is extremely powerful, as we have seen time and time again. And for her slots, you can also run attack speed Oath Force so that she can have higher speed and also have the visible buffs. And she doesn't really care about getting panicked when she's stacking up like triple unity. And having Spectrum Unity is extremely good because she can have higher stat ceiling and be really fast and get a lot of stats while also having effects in her weapon, like the special charges and the healing. So this is also a strong way of building up Echidna. And then finally, at max investment, you can run expensive skills like Distant Attack Speed Solo for having more stats, and also Spurn 4, which can provide you with more true damage, so that can be helpful. And it does have kind of anti-synergy with her healing, but still, the true damage that you get out of Spurn is dynamic. So if you fall in the threshold in the combat itself, you're going to be getting the true damage. So that's why you can run Spurn 4 on Echidna and just retaliate back with Vital Astras that are going to be doing a lot of damage. And in the future, whenever we get Velocity 4, I think that is going to be the best option for Echidna because she has got the special charges in her weapon. So having the Null Guard effect is going to be really helpful, and nothing is going to be stopping her Vital Astras then. She could also be run in Aether Raids offense as a God Axe because she has all of the things to function there. And she can be run with Legendary Male Robin, who can provide the Grand Strategy and the Null Follow-up effect, which can be helpful to Echidna, and he's basically the best partner for any kind of unity stacking skill. So you can run Distant Attack Speed Solo and also have Null Counter Disrupt. So Null Counter Disrupt does provide the damage reduction, which is of course helpful with the damage reflection and just stacking up damage reduction to function as a God Axe. And the Null Counter Disrupt effect is going to be helpful against many of the Fallen Marias and Duels that you will face in Aether Raids. So she could be run in the Astro Season or the Light Season. Doesn't really matter, and she has the tools now to function in Aether Raids offense if you have her at max investment. Of course, you're going to be missing out on Phantom Speed, which the tier 4 damage reduction skills have, but this is definitely a pretty good tech option to face those healers, which can be annoying, and the fire sweep effects. So if you don't really want to have Null Counter Disrupt, then you can just run any other tier 4 damage reduction skill and you should be doing fine. Travant gets a good weapon refine in the form of Thracia King Lance, which does give him the Iot Shield, which is really good as he doesn't really have to run that as a Sacred Seal, and it does give him +8 to all of his stats and debuffs the enemy for -X attack in the combat, and this X depends on 15% of his visible defense stat, so he can shred a lot of attack on the enemy, which is really good for functioning as a bulky lance flyer. And then he can get guard on the enemy, which is good as a bulky slow flyer because he's gonna get doubled a lot, and he doesn't have to run a stance 4 skill because you can just run any other mixed phase option now, which is good. And then he gets guaranteed follow-up attack, which is good because he is pretty slow, so that was definitely the bare minimum. And then finally he has got special charges on both enemies' attacks and his own attacks. He unfortunately doesn't have -1 special cooldown, so he cannot really retaliate back with bonfires, but still he could run something like Ignis and do major damage with his defense stat. So overall this weapon refine is good, but I do feel like Cormac's weapon refine is just so much better because of the flat damage reduction that it has got. But still, at the very least, this weapon refine is better than Arcane Xiang, and it does function well with the stat spread that Travant has got. So ultimately he's gonna be the unit that you invest in because you like him a lot. And if you've already plus and merged him, then this is going to be a pretty good upgrade. If you're going to be building him up with this weapon refine, then you can run Attack Defense Catch 4 as both Sacred Seal and a slot A skill. And this can work out for mixed phase as he can just stack up more attack and defense. And for the IVs, I do feel like having the defense IV is helpful. And then you can ascend the attack IV if you're going to be spending a Floret, because his weapon does depend on his visible defense stat to debuff the enemy's attack. So defense is pretty important with his weapon refine, and he does have a super boon, so selecting that can be helpful. And then you can just run attack defense range to stack up even more attack debuffs along with the Neotrace skill. And Ignis is going to be the special of choice because even cooldown specials like Ignis do work well with his weapon and the special charges that he can get. So he can basically trigger that on his double, which is going to be doing a lot of damage. The best thought be skill for any kind of physical flyer, especially if they're tanky, is going to be Guard Bearing 4. Now Travant can definitely function with Wyvern Flight 4 whenever it comes out, but I don't think that's going to be as good as Guard Bearing 4 because it provides with amazing damage reduction and it's just so good on tanky flyers. So I think it should be run if you're going to be investing even more into Travant, and you can run Attack Defense Hold for getting even more debuff on the enemy. And Attack Defense Unity is a pretty good skill because it does protect him from the debuffs on 2 of his main stats, and the new Squad Ace seal is also good for providing him with some extra defense and also extra HP, so that does translate into more bulk. And if you're going to be boosting up his defense, like visible defense, then it could be a good option. So he can also be run with distant stance now, and the IO shield definitely helps him because he's not going to be caring about the bows, and he can also take on mages and other forms of ranged units because he shreds a lot of attack of the enemy with his weapon and also gets the extra resistance. So distant stance can help you with that, and because he has guaranteed follow-up attack and no follow-up negation, you can kind of try and get the Omni Breaker effect by having Attack Smoke 4 in his slot C, and the extra resistance can also help you, and just any kind of Sacred Seal which can boost up his resistance or attack can help. Now Solid Ground is also an option that you could run in his slot A, but I think that other skills which provide another effect are probably better because even if you run Solid Ground and boost up his visible defense, you're still going to be reducing his resistance, which is not the best thing because it's not like Dragon units are rare or anything like that. You're still going to be facing them. So I do like Attack Defense Unity especially, and Distant Stance if you're going to be going for all-out tanking. You can also run him in Summoner Duels S as a frontliner like you could do with any kind of other melee flyer who can have access to Guard Bearing 4 and also provide the Guidance 4 to your team. So if you're a big Travant fan, then that is also going to be an option. And Moonbow can be run because a lot of the initiators are probably going to be having null follow-up, so you're not exactly going to be able to hit them with your Ignis. So that's why having Moonbow is going to be good so that you can retaliate back with it. And Attack Defense Unity does help in case the enemy brings some kind of debuffing skills, so it can protect your main stats. And a more non-conventional build just for the fun player face stuff is going to be with Sturdy Surge from the Divine Codes. So because of these special charges, you can easily trigger Ignis with his guaranteed follow-up attack, and that is going to be doing massive amounts of damage, and the Sturdy Surge is going to be healing you up as well. So it can be a fun build, not exactly his best build, but still something that you can try. And Attack Defense Menace is also an option, but kind of pales in comparison to Guidance 4 or Attack Defense Hold, which can just be much better. And then finally, because he's a flying unit, he could be used in Arena as a scoring unit with B-Dual Flying 4, and Guidance Mobility support is just so good for Arena usage. And with Guard Bearing 4, he can actually function better, and with the IO shield that he has got, he can even like tank some of the Poe units at Plus and Merge. So that could be useful if you do want to use him in Arena, because being a flying unit is definitely good in Arena as a lot of the maps are flying favored, and flying units also bring some unique support with Guidance 4 and also have good tanking potential with Guard Bearing 4. Mareeta gets an excellent weapon refine that not only makes her as a good God Sword but also a God Sword Slayer. So Mareeta's sword did give her -1 special cooldown and null follow up, and now with the weapon refine she's able to get +8 to all of her stats and also neutralize any kind of speed and defense visible buffs of the opponent, which is also dealt speed defense. She also gets the offensive half of tempo scale, which is also null guard, so she's not going to be stopped by any kind of guard effects, and she also gets true damage based on 10% of her speed. And finally, she pierces any kind of percentage based damage reduction non-special skills of the opponents whenever her special triggers. So this weapon refine is kind of reminiscent of Creator's Sword of Byleth's. It's just that she doesn't have the defensive half of the tempo skill and doesn't have the damage reduction, but she does have dealt speed defense instead, which allows her to ignore any kind of speed buff of the opponent, and also gets the true damage, which does make her damage output a bit better. And she already has better speed than both of the Byleths, which is really good as a God Sword and does have a super boon on it. So she can function as a God Sword again and also pierce through the damage reduction of the other God Swords by triggering her special. And because of the -1 special cooldown and null follow-up, she's going to be having pretty good effects along with this weapon refine to function as a unit in this metagame. Obviously, there's too much competition when it comes to sword infantry units, but still, this is a good weapon refine for Mareeta. if you're going to be building her up on a budget, then you can simply give her Wind Sweep and give her a 1 cooldown special like Moonbow, which she can trigger on a double. And something like this can help you in limited battles or arena assault, because damage reduction piercing is very valuable in my opinion. So having that for the competitive game modes like arena assault is really good even on a budget. And then if you're going to be investing heavily into her, then she can run the tier 4 damage reduction skills like Close Call 4 and run Time Pulse 4 to pre-charge her Vital Astra, and also have Attack Speed Finish 4. Now because of having the half tempo effect, she's actually able to trigger Vital Astra twice in the single round of combat in the player phase, which is definitely pretty strong. And the fact that she gets the healing and the true damage on top of it is just really good. So the finish skill is really good with the specials that she's going to be spamming, and Time Pulse 4 is going to be pre-charging Vital Astra to give her another layer of damage reduction, and Vital Astra is going to be doing a lot of damage with her speed, so it is going to be her best special. And Time Pulse and Vital Astra is going to be the bread and butter combo on many of these sword infantry units, and same goes for Mareeta. You can also run her as a God Sword by running a distant counter slotty skill like Distant Attack Speed Solo, and again the same tier 4 damage reduction skill, and Time Pulse 4 does go really well even with this kind of build. You can also use her in the player phase with Ced Sparrow because she's going to be having that null guard, so she doesn't really care about any of that, and also has null follow up, so she can heal up while triggering specials like Luna and also do a lot of damage. Obviously not the best build for Mareeta, but still this is something that she can utilize. And if you're going to be using her in Aether Raids offense, then I guess you can pre-charge her Vital Astra with Asker and just have Speed Smoke instead, so that she can have more dodge in a sense and have more damage reduction. So like many of these sword infantry units, Mareeta can function as a God Sword, and she's not going to be caring about a lot of the remote sparrows and other damage reduction that you face in Aether Raids offense. So that is going to be really good, and it is going to be setting her apart from all of the other sword infantry units except for Byleth, of course, who can also do the same thing. And Byleths do a pretty amazing job in Aether Raids offense after their weapon refine, so Mareeta is going to be no different. Ced gets a pretty good weapon refine that can at least make him as a much better mage nuke. So Winds of Silice does give him +3 speed, and now with the weapon refine he's able to get +11 speed and attack in the combat, and he can also debuff the opponent's speed and resistance by 20% of his visible speed stats, so that is pretty good for having even more speed as an offensive mage. And then finally at start of turn, he gets following effects. He gets the +6 attack and speed buff, the Desperation status effect, and also the Special Charges status effect. So overall this weapon refine, even though it's not the most insane, I think it does make Ced a lot more functional, and he can be pretty much considered like a green Monica in a way because of the desperation and the things that he can do. So overall as a Ced fan, I'm kind of satisfied. I kind of wish that he got like 1 or 2 more extra effects, but still with this now he's much better as a mage nuke, especially if you invest in him with some expensive skills. So if you're going to be building him up on a budget, then you can give him double life and death. And double life and death is pretty good because he does depend on his visible speed stat to debuff the enemy, so it does work out. And you can also give him null follow up, which is the single most important skill to have when you have desperation, so that you do not get stopped by the follow-up negation enemies. So null follow up is extremely important and should always be part of Ced's kit, because without that you're not going to be able to nuke a lot of the threats, which could be annoying. So this is a build that you can run, and you can also give him some other expensive skills from the divine codes like attack speed ideal, which does work really well with his desperation status because he's always going to be at full HP ideally, and he should not be facing any kind of counter attacks. And you can also run joint drive speed so that he can have even more speed. And Glimmer is going to be the special of choice because we are cutting a lot of the resistance of the enemy, so it does become a bit better special than Moonbow in my opinion. And then finally, the best max investment build that you can have on Ced is going to be with Magical Null Follow Up to shred through the damage reduction, and Attack Speed Finish, which is going to be giving you the true damage and the healing. The true damage is going to be the main thing why Attack Speed Finish is a really good option. And you can run Time Pulse 4 and have Iceberg at 2 cooldown, and with the special charges of his weapon, he's able to trigger Iceberg on his double, which is going to be doing a lot of damage. Obviously you can run Luna as a special, but we're cutting the resistance of the enemy with his weapon, so that's why other options do work out, like Iceberg, where he's going to be having over 40 resistance with his weapon and the stats that he can get. Now like I said before, his visible speed is important, so you can run double life and death with a more expensive build with Time Pulse 4 and Magical Null follow-up. But overall, I do like the true damage of the finish skill. And when you run like double life and death, you're going to be attracting a lot of chill speed and chill attack debuffs if they're going to be a thing on any kind of content. So that unfortunately does make you susceptible to those kinds of debuffs, and you're going to be a magnet for that. Unfortunately, he doesn't really have any kind of unity effect or, you know, debuff neutralization like Luwin, for example. So double life and death, while can work out, I do like the finish skill a bit more, but still this is going to be an option. And he can also be used in Aether Raids defense with a Bridal Catria team and quad attack, and actually do a lot of damage with the Magical Null follow-up, shredding through the damage reduction. And I think in Aether Raids defense, attack speed unity is going to be the better skill to be run, because in case you get debuffed, you're going to be able to turn those into extra stats, which is really good. And if you run him with like Legendary Robin, then he can obviously get even faster. So the main threat of Ced is going to be against a lot of the faster opponents, because Ced himself can get so fast with his weapon now that it is going to be pretty annoying for them. And he can also shred any kind of other damage reduction that they may have. And he can also run Time Pulse and Ruptured Sky, so that even if the enemy has got guard skill, you can still trigger Ruptured Sky on his double, which is going to be doing quite a lot of damage, especially if you're facing any kind of dragon unit. Make sure to share this video with your friends if they're trying to build up any of these units, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, then make sure to leave a like and a comment, helps me tremendously. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks down below or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more FE videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Ross after seeing Echidna's weapon refine. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.